Welcome back to Adolescence, where we talk about that phase of life between adolescence and adulthood.
I'm Jess.
And I'm Laura.
Happy Monday, everyone. I hope that you had an incredible weekend filled with memories that will last you an absolute lifetime.
Wow, that is what's the word? Like a
high precedent?
Like a
high standard?
I was going to say like a tall, that's a tall order.
Tall order, yeah. We're really struggling with our what do you call that?
Idioms?
Idioms. Earlier I said, I have a cat in my throat. Frog in my throat was what I was trying to say, Laura.
Oh.
I went with the wrong animal.
Cat is nothing close.
Well, okay, my connection was hairball, and I had a frog in my throat.
Okay.
Anyway,
yeah.
We're doing the damn thing. We are on camera, and we are here today to talk to you about why you don't have any friends.
Yeah, so quick plugs, as always. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. Share with a friend. And follow us on TikTok. We are posting clips of our eps.
We've been very active on TikTok lately. We actually are in the midst of a 30-day challenge. Maybe not anymore, actually. But
by the time this comes out, yeah, we're pre-recording quite a few episodes. So.
Yeah, but we're TikTok girlies now.
We are. So yeah, go follow us. Join the fun. Leave a comment. I love when people comment.
Me too. Leave a comment. Send to a friend. I love when I see the little sent arrow.
Yes.
I'm like, ooh, are you sharing it because you like this or because you're making fun of me?
Either way. I don't care. Yeah.
I'll take it. All publicity is good publicity.
It's none of my business.
None of my business if you're just mocking me for how cringy I am. Because I agree.
Yeah. Honestly, same.
Sometimes I'm laying in bed at night and I get the ick about TikTok and like my presence on TikTok. Even though like in the mornings I feel like I'm totally comfortable filming and posting them. For some reason at nighttime, it just hits me. I'm like, wow, anyone could just pick up their phone and watch me holding the camera, talking about something.
I know, it is a little ick, but
a little ick, but it's okay.
It's okay. We do it for the fans.
We do it for you, baby. All right,
let's get into the episode. I'm excited about this one. It's juicy.
It is juicy, and I think that our friendship content is some of the best that we put out there.
Yeah, I think it's definitely my favorite of the topic areas that we cover.
Agreed.
A lot of the other topics that we cover, there are podcasts that fully cover those topics. And I know that there's a couple friendship podcasts out there, but I just feel like friendship is just not as talked about.
It isn't. And I feel like people treat friendship as just something that's supposed to like work out in the background of your life. But in order for it to get there, like you really do have to put in a lot of work and intentionality behind your friendships, which might be why you don't have any friends if you're not working on pursuing those friendships, but not to tease the list.
Well, yeah, that's why we're talking about this today. So I think that a lot of times people will say, I have no friends. Like, I seriously just have no friends. And I think sometimes that's probably true, but I feel like for the most part, people...
Not to be creepy, I just wanted to
that's accurate. I think for the most part though, everyone has some friends. I guess maybe when you say I have no friends, it's more that either your friends don't want to hang out with you, you don't have close friends, your friends don't live near you. Those are probably what people mean most of the time.
Yeah. I feel like something that I used to kind of misconstrue with like not having friends in my head, not verbally necessarily, but like is not having a friend group, and we have lots of content about not having a friend group in post-grad, so go check that out. What's the episode?
35.
I know she would know. And we have TikToks about it, and we have articles about it on adolescence.com. But yeah, that's one area where I feel like I'm always like thinking to myself, oh, I have no friends, but it's like, no, I just don't have friends that are friends with each other per se.
Yes.
In great quantity.
Yeah, because I think in college, you're so used to that. Even, I don't know, I just think in college it was so normal to just be hanging out with a lot of different friend groups. Maybe you had a core friend group yourself, or maybe you would just, like I would go hang out with your friend group sometimes, or I would go hang out with, you know, the people from this one club that I was involved in, or I would go hang out with some people from a class. Like, you kind of just form friend groups really naturally, and there's just always a lot of people around, and you're usually not just hanging out one-on-one. So then when you graduate and you don't have that anymore, and you're not bouncing between all these different groups, I think that's when you do feel like you don't have friends.
So true. I feel like in college there's so many opportunities to have more of those loose friendships.
Mm-hmm.
You're not that close, but you're like around each other enough. That was kind of some of my favorite friends, like the class friends that you just like,
yeah,
you never really hang out. You weren't like necessarily in the same social circles, but you're like Yeah, that's my class friend. Like, I remember I was friends with this one girl who's from Turkey, and we weren't outside of class friends. We were just class friends. But her and her friends would go get a table at the club every weekend for both nights. And I was like, you run in your rich international circle that I will never be a part of because I'm not cool enough. But I get to be your class friend, and that's special.
Yeah, so true. I had some cool class friends too that were really rich.
Doesn't it make you just like, it makes you feel cool. Like, even in high school, I remember if I was friends with certain girls in class, I'd be like, ooh, yeah, I'm sitting next to Lauren today.
Yeah, the cool girl.
The cool girl. Anyways, I digress.
But I think for this episode, we're going to be talking about why maybe you feel like you don't have friends, or maybe you actually genuinely don't. So either way, I think this could apply.
Yeah, consider this your wake-up call. So,
Yeah.
let's just get right into it. I think that honestly, the main reasons why you might not have friends or not have a lot of friends is that you're not getting yourself out of your comfort zone and putting yourself into situations where you can make friends.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds so obvious, but I think that when we get in our heads about it, we think, well, what am I going to do? There's nothing I can do. All my friends moved away. Like, it's not my fault. There's no solution.
Right.
But there is a solution, and the solution is to get outside of your comfort zone.
I think a common narrative in our society, or like just a common behavior that we all partake in, is we expect people to just fall onto our laps. Like, and this goes for dating too. We just want the perfect person to arrive into our life. And that goes for friends too. We're like, oh, if it's meant to be, like, we'll cross paths. But honestly, no. Like, if you're just going to work every day and you're coming home after work and you're going to bed, chances are you're going to struggle to make friends because you're not putting yourself into situations where you can make friends. And that requires doing different things outside of your normal schedule. Like, part of what can introduce you to new people is like doing new things. If you're not doing new things, how will you ever meet a different person?
Right. And I think that a lot of people are shy, and so that can sound really scary, and maybe they're really introverted, but I don't know. I think that if you have that roadblock in your life, it's really worth digging into and trying to get out of, and just trying to put yourself into situations, because it does get easier over time. And also, maybe you're listening to this and you're like, well, what situations can I put myself into? We also have a whole episode about how to practically make friends, like what exact steps you should take and what you should do. I don't know the number for that.
Ooh, shame on you.
It's a more recent one, so if you do a
Yeah.
couple scrolls back, it should be there, but I think it's in the 70s. I can check really quick. I'm leaning towards
80.
Okay.
How to make friends as an adult.
80. So yeah, definitely listen to that one if you're looking for the more tangible, practical tips on how to do it, because we give a lot of, I think, good advice there. But I feel like overall, you just need to be putting yourself out there more, and you just never know. Like, I have a friend who started going to these pickleball tournaments, and she's met a lot of people through that.
Wow,
So
that's great.
it's cool. I mean, it's just
see
not something you would think, but she just goes alone. I also think that's another thing. If you're always bringing a friend with you as a buffer, I think it actually is harder to make new friends.
Yeah.
Situations.
That could be why you have no friends, honestly, too. Is like, if you just like have a couple friends that you're always with and they're not the most like warm and open people, like,
Yeah.
it's hard to integrate new people in.
Like, I went to an event recently and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to this event and socialize and meet people, but I was anxious to go alone, so I had a friend come with me. But because of that, I feel like we didn't put ourselves out there as much. If I had gone alone, I know for a fact I would have gone up to some of these groups and just started talking to them, because I'm not gonna stand there alone.
Right.
But if you have someone with you, you just have that comfort, and I think it's so easy to just rely on that.
I think what everyone needs to keep in mind is that it's going to be uncomfortable at first, just like with anything that you're doing at first, but you have to put in the work and like the effort to be uncomfortable. Like, when I was fresh out of college, a lot of my friends moved away and I had to start from pretty much ground zero, and it required like going on a lot of uncomfortable like drinks after work, happy hours, and like going to people's parties basically alone and just like mingling with their friends and having to like work really hard to make friends. But it pays off.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be easy though. I think we all have to get rid of that notion that it's going to be this like super seamless, easy experience every time.
And I think we also have to get rid of the idea that it's not okay to just walk up to someone and have a really awkward conversation.
Yeah.
Like, it's gonna happen. Like, obviously, just like with dating, you're not gonna go on every single date and fall in love with this person and mesh super well and have an amazing conversation. There's gonna be dates that you go on where you just don't vibe and it's a little weird, it's a little awkward, and you can't wait to get out of the conversation.
Yeah.
Same with these social situations. You might start talking to some girly that you think you might get along with, and you really have nothing in common, and you're just like, okay, it was nice to meet you, I'm gonna go grab a drink. Like, just get out of it. You don't have to be best friends with every single person you talk to.
Absolutely. So another reason that you might not have friends is if you are dealing with some sort of mental health issue, and this one's obviously a little bit more understandable. Social anxiety is very prevalent in our society, and a lot of us have that. But I think the key here is that if that's something that's preventing you from making more friends, is seeking therapy and seeking help from someone who can help you overcome that, because, you know, you don't want to let that take over.
Yeah, I think it's also, again, I have dealt with social anxiety in the past. I've had a generalized anxiety disorder diagnosis. So I totally relate to this, but I think that if you use it as a crutch and use it as an excuse for why you can't make friends, you're not going to. Like, I think, again, with all of these things, it's like, yeah, maybe you are shy and maybe it's really hard for you to put yourself out there. But if you don't, like, both things can be true. You're shy, but also if you don't get past that, you're not going to make new friends.
Right. It's kind of like the saying of choose your hard. And again, I don't want to like discount mental health issues. I know there's a lot to work through there, but if you're dealing with like a little bit of social anxiety or just general shyness, like, you kind of have to pick your hard. Like, do you want to struggle every weekend because you don't have friends to hang out with and feel really lonely? Because loneliness is like really debilitating at times. Mm-hmm. Or do you want to struggle a little bit putting yourself out there and making friends? Like, I feel like that's the choice in the long run that's going to be the better difficult situation.
Right. Especially if that's something that you want. Like, if it's worth it to you to put in the time and, you know, seek help and find ways to get over it, like, then it's worth it to you.
Yeah. And maybe you don't care about having friends, in which case, why the hell are you here?
Yeah, why are you listening to this? I think another one is just maybe your living situation is just not conducive. So maybe either you live in a really small town, there's just not a lot of people that are friend candidates to even become friends with, or maybe you live in a kind of far away from your friends in your same city. I feel like I joke with my friends a lot, like Jess and one of my other friends that lives in a different neighborhood, that we are in like a long distance friendship even within Boston, because we just live in different neighborhoods that are kind of far apart.
Yeah, it's so true. And like, maybe you're in your head being like, why don't they ever hang out with me? Is it something I did? It's something I said. It's probably just that you live inconveniently to them. And this isn't to say that you need to up and move, but like, you might have to put in more effort to make friends in your area of your city. Or if you live in a small town and like, you're not really tied to staying there, maybe it's worth it to find a bigger pool of people. Like, I think there's a lot of value that can come from exploring a new place. So if you find yourself really creating some new friendships and it's just not happening in your town, maybe you move.
Yeah. I think there is something so real about just proximity being a huge factor in terms of how much time you spend with certain people. Jess and I talk about this, but we don't live near each other. I have a lot of friends that actually do live really close to me. And so I feel like when I have those nights that it's just last minute, it's like, oh, it's 8 o'clock on a Saturday, I'm just going to text someone to come over. Those are the people that I'm going to first. And it's not that I don't want to hang out with Jess. It's like simply that I know that the people who live 5 minutes away from me, it's just easier for us to coordinate something.
Yeah, and it's super funny because we actually live like a 15-minute drive from each other.
Yeah.
But when you live in Boston and there's no parking easily accessible, no one has a driveway or a parking lot, like, it does end up being a huge burden.
Yeah.
So, yeah, consider your living situation. Maybe that is a part of why you're lacking in the friendship category.
Yeah, totally. I think it's so easy to just make up stories in your head that like, so-and-so doesn't like me, or why doesn't this group of friends invite me? But if they all live walking distance from each other, that could honestly just be why.
Yeah. And kind of building off of that one, if you had just moved somewhere, like, this is a situation where I feel like anyone would struggle with having friends. Like, obviously you're not going to move to a new city and just magically have like a friend group. But this is another case where I think you really have to put yourself out there and not just hope that your dream best friend stumbles into your life. Because how would she? How would she get there unless you're putting yourself out there, going out to a workout class and socializing, or saying yes when your coworker invites you to their birthday party? Like, how else do you expect to meet your friends?
So true. She can't break into your apartment and find you on the couch.
Right. You wouldn't like it if she did.
Also, if you just don't have similar interests with some of your friends, maybe one of your best friends is a marathon runner and she spends all her free time running and you couldn't care less about running and you just like to read books, like your paths might just not cross as much. It might just feel like you don't have as much in common. It's so much easier when you have friends that share similar interests with you to find activities to do and to bond over those things.
That's honestly such a good point. And fortunately, I've not run up against this too much, but like, think about if you had friends that preferred to spend their weekends camping. Like, see you never.
The fact that you just said that and made that face, like, could you imagine?
Can you imagine the horror? Like,
no, but agreed.
We would not be hanging out ever. Like, when would we see each other? Like, your free time is spent in the woods. So, I don't know. Not for me.
Yeah.
Not shitting on camping. Like, great for you, but like, that's the kind of person that I would just never cross paths with. So, I think it's important to have friends that share your interests. And if you feel like you have no friends, maybe your friends just are off doing things that you don't want to do.
Yeah, and in that case, you should find people that do like doing what you want to do.
Yeah.
Like, instead of going camping, why don't you go to Home Goods and Sephora and get lunch like we did last weekend?
That's my kind of friend. You want to go spend money and eat French fries? Done.
I'll be there.
I think another reason why you might not have friends, and this is the one that is a little more of a zinger, is that you are the problem. You're a bad friend.
Yeah, I mean, we gave a lot of examples of things that might contribute to people not wanting to hang out with you, but ultimately, if you're a really cool gal, people are going to want to hang out with you.
I think that a lot of us could benefit from a little dose of self-awareness. Actually, a big dose of self-awareness. Like, I know certain people in this world who I feel like just never seem to hold friends. They're always cycling through friends and moving through life without consistent friendships. And you have to wonder, like, do they know the common denominator is them? Do you know anyone like that?
Oh, yeah.
Where you're just like, how do you not see that you are the reason?
Yeah.
You have long-term friendships.
That's the thing. I think that it would be, you would have to have the worst luck ever if every single person you've ever befriended ended up being a horrible person. Like, in all likelihood, you are the problem. And I think it's worth considering that.
I think there's several different ways this can look. One way, it's just top of mind, is like, if you're kind of narcissistic, if you make everything about you and all of your friendships revolve around your life and talking about yourself, and you don't really like invest in getting to know your friends and listening to them, yeah, it kind of checks out that you don't have any friends.
Yeah. I also think that there's like a certain type of person that just goes a little too fast in a friendship. I think this is the same with dating. If you went on one date with someone and now all of a sudden they're texting you constantly and trying to make all these plans with you, you would think that's a little weird and creepy and love bomby. Like, that's not how normal relationships progress. So it's the same with friendships. I think that if you just meet someone and then the next day they're texting you and telling you all about their life, it's a little weird.
Yeah, so make sure that you're not doing that. Like, make sure you're respecting people's boundaries up front and that you're kind of like reading the room and pacing your friendship, because like coming on hot just scares people away.
And I think it's okay to be excited about I think it's okay to be excited about a potential new friend. I've definitely been there before where I really do think that we can be good friends and I am excited to get there, but like, you do sort of have to ring it in a little bit, because otherwise you can just turn someone off completely.
It's off-putting.
It's off-putting, yeah.
And I think it's hard to know if you're the person doing that. So like, I don't know. I just think that like we all need to take accountability, and if you find yourself struggling to keep friends or make friends, it could be a reflection of you. Maybe it's not. Maybe you have a bad picker. Like, that's also part of it, right? Like, I feel like I know certain people who just like are super nice and they just kind of welcome whoever into their life, and therefore they have lots of friends who just kind of like suck because they're like, oh, I just collect, like, I'm just gonna collect all of them, like be friends with whoever. And it's like, okay, yeah, those friendships were destined to end because like you didn't do the upfront selection of like weeding out if they're a good person or not.
Or maybe you feel like there's certain people that you have to continue being friends with. And so those friends, but we all have a limited amount of time, right? So if those friends are taking up a ton of your time, maybe it's hard for you to find better friends. Or maybe it's not all your fault. Like, you could be a bad friend and it could just be because you've had bad friends and so you've had bad role models of friendship and now that's just how you behave. I think, okay, this is kind of a niche example. Maybe we'll cut this out, but on Love is Blind, right?
We love Love is
All
Blind.
roads lead back to Love is Blind.
All roads.
But on this season of Love is Blind, I feel like an example is kind of the difference between Chelsea and Mika / Irina. They kind of go hand in hand. Like, I feel like in middle school, maybe I would have been more like a Mika or Irina because that was the example that was sort of set for me. Like, I was reading the Click books and I was, exposed to Gossip Girl, and basically just toxic friendship to me was the norm. And so maybe I would have thought that their behavior of just being mean girls and, being bad friends and bad partners was kind of normal and like, live for the drama. Whereas now I see Chelsea as like such a better example of just, good boundaries and loving herself first and, treating the people around her with respect. And I see that as the mature way to handle things. Whereas when I was in middle school, I would have seen that as like, oh, she's just a goody two shoes,
Yeah, or she's annoying, or she's not like laid back and easygoing because Chelsea's the one that ended up with
Kwame.
Okay, yeah. Chelsea comes on strong and she knows what she wants. And maybe when you're younger, you're like, wow, that girl's kind of annoying. But she's a good person and she treats people well. But you're right. Like, the role models we had growing up were Blair Waldorf and Massey Block. So no wonder we all want to be like Micah. Like, it's just...
That's the thing, yeah. And I feel like as you get older, you start to realize that that's shitty and that's not how you should treat people. But maybe... So my point is that maybe it's not all your fault. Like, maybe you haven't been the best friend and that's something you should recognize and maybe atone for and apologize to certain people. But you can change. You can become a better friend. You don't have to continue to be the mean girl. Because honestly, being the mean girl's out. It was in for a while there.
But okay, is it always just in when you're like in middle school and high school? Like, I feel like those are the ages where it's cool to be a mean girl. And then after that, it's like, no, it's cool to be nice.
Maybe. I think maybe it is to a certain extent. I also think that we were just like bombarded with like a lot of shows about it.
Yeah, we were.
But maybe it is always a little bit.
Like, it's an age thing, I feel like. But definitely encountered some mean girls in post-grad who get part of their, like, self-worth, I think, from putting others down. So if you feel like you are empowered because you make other people feel left out and awkward, or you take joy in them being lonely or embarrassed, like, therapy.
Yeah, and maybe that's why you have no friends.
Yeah, I'd say that's why you have no friends.
Yeah, for real.
Next one.
Maybe you're just standoffish and maybe it's hard. Honestly, I feel like I'm this way sometimes. Like, it depends on the person and if I feel comfortable with them, but sometimes I think it can be hard for me to just be myself when I first meet someone. So I think I maybe can come across as a little standoffish, even though that's not my intention. But I think obviously that can be off-putting to people. So I guess just trying to be friendly and open whenever you meet someone is a good way to go.
When I was 7th grade and below, pretty much, I was like this, where I was a standoffish person. It was because I was really shy. Like, I was just super shy. And I remember this really came to light. I did this 3-year confirmation program through my church. And all the kids were so close. And I just felt like the odd one out. But then I learned, because my mom was one of the, helper moms, because I couldn't do it alone. I was like, Mom, help me. People, apparently were talking behind my back, saying that I, came off as kind of a snob and a bitch. And I can see why they thought that, because, I would never partake in the fun. I just kind of stepped aside and, looked at them. And it was because I was so shy, but I had to do a lot of work on myself to, overcome the shyness. And I think I, really changed a lot. I had such a transformation between 7th and 8th grade where I became really friendly and open, but it took a lot of self-awareness and realizing that I was not coming across how I thought I was.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's really interesting, and I think that's a really hard thing to do, to figure out something about yourself that you don't like and to actually change it, especially when you're in a situation like school where you're really in this box, I think it's really hard to change people's perceptions of you. But honestly, the best way to do it is just to live differently. Like, if you just start being really friendly and open, even if people at first are like, oh my god, weird, Jess just talked to me, like she's never spoken to me in my life, like after a while I'm sure they just got used to it. They're like, yeah. Jess is just nice, and they probably forgot that you ever were standoffish. So
it's so true. And I feel like some of the standoffishness can come from, like, again, that mean girl, I don't know, energy we were taught when we were younger of, like, it's cool to be the standoffish girl and, like, be off to the side and, like, not partake in the fun. But, like, I've learned as I've gotten older, like, it's better to be the one who's, like, nice and friendly and makes people feel welcomed. Even, like, in my building, me and my boyfriend struggle all the time because, like, we always say hi to everyone we pass. I'm always like, hi, how are you doing? A lot of times I get silence. People don't even talk back to me. It's weird. Like, weird people in this building. They don't even say shit to me. But I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to change who I am. Like, I'm going to keep saying hi, even though I feel kind of weird sometimes. I'm like, oh, am I, like, coming on too strong by, like, saying hi? But it's like, no, I'm going to keep being the nice person because, like, the alternative of being standoffish doesn't feel better, you know?
Yeah, it's, like, not authentic to you. And that's a hard thing to do, to just be yourself regardless of how other people come across. And there's definitely times where I've met certain girls and we don't click, but that doesn't mean that I have to conform and change who I am, which I think is something I'm still trying to internalize and learn.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel that way too. Like, I feel like I have to mold to whoever I'm talking to. And sometimes, like, if the person's standoffish, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to become standoffish then.
Right.
Like, I'm going to be, like, aloof, even though that's not who I am, you know?
Yeah, let's have a standoff now of who
Right.
can, like the Taylor Swift lyric, it's looking like a contest of who can act like they care less.
This one always knows the episode to reference of adolescence and always knows this Taylor Swift lyric for the moment.
That applies to the situation.
Always. But, like, yeah, I think that if you are someone who's more shy or, like, you feel a little bit awkward, like, integrating to social interactions, just keep in mind that might be coming across as a little bit, like, judgmental or snobby or bitchy or whatever, you know? Like, not every time, but that could be how people are reading you if you're always, like, not engaging with the group, you know?
Totally.
And I don't think, by the way, that you ever come off that way. So
yeah, I mean, I've definitely like done work on that, but I think sometimes I feel like I'm coming off that way, but it's not. It's more just me feeling uncomfortable or like being in a new situation, not wanting to.
Right.
I think honestly, when you're hyper aware of yourself too, it can also be a downside. Like if you're hyper thinking about how am I coming across? Do they like me? Am I seeming friendly enough? Like then you can kind of get in your own head and maybe even have the opposite result. But
yeah. I mean, it's definitely hard, and like at first it's probably gonna feel unnatural if you are someone who's typically a little bit more reserved and to the side, but I don't know. If you're like trying to make friends, that could be part of the reason why you're struggling.
Yeah. Another part could honestly just be that you're not spending enough time on your friendships. I think this is a big one too. Like if you aren't giving your friends the time of day and you're spending all your time with your boyfriend, or maybe you're just super busy and you don't have a lot of free time to spend with friends, honestly, that could be why people aren't flocking to you with social plans.
That's a big one, what you said about, like, if you spend all of your time with your partner. Like, to me, I feel like that's kind of one of the biggest reasons that people withdraw is, like, they get into a relationship and they're like, peace, everyone. And it's, you know, it's fine to, like, split your time between your partner and your friends, but, gosh, you can't, like, sit there and be like, why are my friends, like, going above and beyond for me if you just, like, totally ditch them for your boyfriend or your girlfriend. Like, of course, because they want a friend who's also engaging with them and like spending time with them and bless you. Bless you.
Thank you.
Don't apologize. Bodily function. Yeah, you can't like wonder why you don't have friends anymore if you withdraw.
Yeah. And I feel like, I mean, I don't think when you get a little older, I don't think this is as common. I'm sure some people still do it, but definitely in college and below, I think there's definitely I have a boyfriend now, so I'm going to spend every waking moment with them.
Right.
And I think, you know, you can be forgiven for doing that when you're 19, but at a certain point, I think if you're going to, every time you get into a new relationship, you're seeing someone and you're excited about them, you ditch all your friends, you can't really be surprised if eventually they don't come running back. Okay.
One of my friends, really good friends, has kind of like fallen out of the group because he just doesn't hang out with them ever. He spends all of his time with his girlfriend, and now, like, it's coming down to, like, weddings, and people are picking groomsmen. It's like, he's just not going to be considered, even though he's probably still going to want to make all of them his groomsmen someday.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny, I don't know why this is always like the culmination, right? It's like, who's going to be my bridesmaids and my groomsmen? But like, to me, that is kind of like the representation of like who you maybe have in your life at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's like, you think of, talk about imbalance. It's like, he probably is going to have all of them, and none of them are going to have him in their wedding parties. It's just like, what happens over years of neglect?
Yeah, exactly. So if you truly don't have time to spend with your friends, I think sometimes you'll go through periods of life where you have less time, but if you genuinely don't prioritize them ever, you might lose them.
You might. And if you're okay with that, then by all means. But again, why are you listening to this?
Yeah.
All right. So another, shall I say the last?
Yeah.
The last reason we have on our radar today of why you might not have friends is that you're just in the wrong crowd. Like, you just might not fit in with people. And this is kind of like the interest one, where you just have different interests, but maybe you just like don't fit in with the friends that you currently have. I feel like I've seen a lot of people who just kind of have a group of friends that either lingered from college or high school, and like this person has like changed so much over the years, and their group of friends maybe has stayed being like the mean girls, or like the, I don't know, like partier types, and they're kind of now into like totally different things. Like, maybe that's why you feel like you have no friends, because you just don't connect with your friends at all.
Right. And I think that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to totally abandon that group, but I think expanding your social circle might make you feel a little more fulfilled. Like, start hanging out with people that you do share interests with, that are sort of more on the same page as you. And then eventually you might realize that these people that you aren't clicking with aren't worth keeping around, but like, maybe they are. Maybe it's just, oh, you know, nostalgia. We have a lot of history together. We still have fun when we hang out. But maybe they're not making you feel really fulfilled socially.
Yeah, and it's such a real thing that like you can have several friends but still feel like you have no friends because you're not like close to these people. So if you have a bunch of friendships that are empty and meaningless and you're not very close to them anymore, yeah, like that can feel like you have no friends.
I feel like in the moments when you're going through a really hard time, or you're just trying to think of like, who can I call to talk about this? Those are the moments where you feel like, I have no friends. Because if you feel like all the people on your contacts list are not the ones that you want to call, those I think are the times when this comes out.
That is so real. Damn. Anyways, ending on this positive note. So hopefully this brought some self-awareness to all of you, anyone who maybe struggles with maintaining friendships.
Definitely take a scroll through our list of episodes if you are looking for more friendship content, because we have tons, and we also have a lot of articles on our website. I'll link the one that we have that's actually about the specific topic in the show notes, but other than that, thanks for listening.
Bye, besties.
Bye.